to Zero Access Footy, episode 3. We are here once again, a little bit later this time, but we have Behm, of course, our usual co-host, to soon be replaced.
Thanks. I love you too.
But we are here to talk everything regards to round 1. I know usually we like to do a little bit of a recap sometimes as this comes out on the Wednesday. However, we want to look a bit more forward into the future this week. We've got a few things we can talk about regarding, if you were talking headlines, obviously we missed out on all the Queensland clashes for opening round, and we had a few battles and few interesting dot points from the few games in opening round that did happen.
The two games that
happened. But there were some talking points.
Also, you wanted me to leave. I've left once in this podcast. I could do it again very gladly.
Yeah, I can make that happen soon. Don't worry. But we've got us... I like hot takes. What can I say? I like to see you...
You like your cold drinks, not your hot takes.
Yeah, well, Dare's got to find a new way to make it healthy. They have no sugar, but I just refuse no sugar. Anyways, unrelated to what we've got here today. We have got, Behm, myself, another week of footy to get excited about. And so we've had our first start, and now we've got a full week. We're both planning to go to some games this weekend too. I'm really excited for North versus... I thought you said you were.
I'm not excited to go to Adelaide.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said you were not going to the game. And I'm
No.
No, you're going to the game. It's Saints versus Adelaide.
My family is rich, so I'm going to Adelaide.
Daddy's taking me to Adelaide.
Actually, no. Uncle's taking me to Adelaide.
And I'm going to North Melbourne versus the Dogs by myself. So
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh my God, that could have been the saddest intro we've ever had. But I am very excited once again to sit down and chat all things AFL and things we've got coming up this week. So I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Of course, we have now opened up and gotten all of our episodes up on Spotify. So go ahead, and if you haven't already and need the opportunity to listen to this on the go, because I know a few people have asked about it already, feel free to jump over on Spotify and have a listen over there if you get the chance to. Of course, follow us on all our socials at Zero Access Footy. But let's get into our reactions to opening round.
Yep. Well, I'm going to preface this by saying I was in Cape Patterson, which is basically south of Leongatha, and I had absolutely no data. So me trying to watch the game was like... You got 5 seconds and then it lagged. So
that's awesome.
I barely watched anything for either of the games. However, what I can say, Hawthorn looked pretty good. Their backline of all tools was very interesting. And I think it worked against a very not fully fit Swans forward line is how I'd put it.
I would add not either of the sides were really that fit. But I think Sydney definitely were less fit coming into this one purely off of injury's sake. Right? Yeah. Because Hawthorn did lose a few. Even, I think, Will Day, who is one I want to touch on, he had a fantastic first half and could have had an absolutely ripper second half if he didn't get himself hurt. I can't remember the exact injury, but, man, he looks really solid. That's a really, really solid start for Will Day, so good on him.
Also, James Worpel got injured as well, and I think he's missing 4 to 6 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how they replace him because they certainly have options. That's for sure. But aside from that, you had the McCartan experiment up forward.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of chatter about it. And I heard on SEN that he'd never once been a top 150 rated player based on Champions data statistics.
That's very surprising.
Never. But obviously they tried to chuck him up forward. And I don't think it's the wrong decision. I just think it's an interesting decision. I can't remember, we talked about it last week, but obviously Cox wants to do some experiments because he doesn't have McDonald or McLean to start the season, and so he's got to find something up forward. And when you don't have a Hawthorn line that is insanely tall down back and up forward, then there's a reason that you don't need to play so many key defenders down there. So you could deal with having Melican, Rampy, and Blakey basically on Chol and Kaushadira or whoever was there. Sicily at times as well. But then having an option that can at least crash the pack and get the ball to ground was really important up forward. Didn't end up working, but it's certainly the right decision. It just didn't really pay off in the end.
So I guess my look at it, because I managed to catch the entire game and have a look through it. The standouts were absolutely Will Day. James Sicily was effective all game, back and forward line. He was, even in the wet, he was making contests and and coming out on top almost every time as a forward leader, which is quite interesting for Sicily. But I guess it just goes to show the kind of versatility his game has. Tom Barras fits in so nicely. He fits in really, really well. I dead set thought he was third best on ground behind Day and Sicily.
It's pretty easy when you're playing on a key defender as well.
No, I get that. I understand that. But, like, he looked really, really solid. And I understand his game, it isn't, like, when he's been doing it for so long, right, and he's now put into a better situation and a better team, Barras's game is going to probably get a few more eyes and look a lot better. But, I mean, he looks like a veteran presence.
Well, he is.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, it'll be interesting to see how teams throughout the year play against this Hawthorn backline.
Yeah.
Because you got so many tools.
Yeah.
Like, they could play 6 key defenders over the height of 193, 194. But it'll depend on how teams want to play. Because do they want to go tall and try and match up? Or do they want to try go small and use their speed to get through them?
Yeah.
But moving on now to the Collingwood game. This was an absolute battering. And I just want to quote Ethan here. It is a what, Rhys? It is a given.
It is a given. Did he
It
say
is
that?
a given.
Did he say it was a given?
He said it was a given.
To be fair, I think we all had picked the Pies.
Yes.
Especially, like, we both said close game.
I said
And
by
even by
25.
20, I was going to say, even by 20, that was a pretty close game, that Sydney Hawks one, because at three-quarter time, it was pretty much
You could have
locked
picked
horse.
either winner.
It could have gone
easily.
either way.
Yeah, yeah.
You could pick the winner of this game by almost halftime. Just surprisingly, I don't know, they looked rusty.
Collingwood looked, I understand that they couldn't kick accurately whatsoever, and they couldn't capitalize on any of their dominance throughout the game, which wasn't as much, right? But they just looked sluggish. That's the best way I could describe it. Because everyone's saying they looked lazy, they looked slow. They did, but they also had moments where they could have and did actually go pretty quickly. They just couldn't capitalize. So they looked sluggish. They took their time to get out of their blocks, and they didn't get out of it until the third quarter, in which they still didn't capitalize on their effort. Obviously, you got the big talking points, which is the McRae and Kingsley scuffle, which we'll talk about afterwards. But in terms of the best performances, you cannot move past Finn Callaghan. Whatsoever.
Wow. I feel like, as a Saints fan, you as a Saints fan is really hurting after that. Finn looks ready to take a step up. It's like he got that. So with players, I know that often a new contract can mean one of two things.
Back to the Essendon talk.
But what I was going to say is when you get a new big contract, you can go one of two ways. Either you have guaranteed your future and you've got a lot of money, so you back off a bit.
Yeah.
Or you do what Finn's doing and play up to it. And that's what Finn's doing.
He was playing up to the 17 million over 10 years contract, let alone the 4-year deal he did sign.
Yeah, I know. It's looking really, really good for Giants fans. I think a lot of people consistently, many years, kind of doubt how far they're going to go.
Yeah.
And depending on how the Pies are this year, because, I mean, I think we all expect Pies to be at least top 8 this year.
Yeah, probably.
That is a big, big statement.
Big
and I don't know
worry.
whether it's just because opening round, everyone's still getting used to, game pace. We're in proper season now. We'll see how that turns out. But I guess it kind of brings us to, a secondary topic on top of this is, does opening round have a future? Does it really have a place? I mean, I think this year's was really...
You just can't take much out of it.
It's tough.
You
Look,
really
it's their
can't.
fight with, the rugby league. Yeah, it's their
NRL.
Yeah, the NRL.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's their fight with that. They're trying to kind of clash the times and get more out of that. But I mean, this year definitely didn't help it.
No.
Obviously, out of their circumstances with that.
But the NFL played through it.
NFL,
NRL
played through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
So
yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, again, it's tough to see where it goes from here. I feel like it could still have a chance. It just feels like fans have already turned off it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to be when fans turn off of something, it's so hard for them to come back into it. Just with anything, but
Yeah.
this in particular, 2 years in, and it's already had a bit of a bluster. All it means is you get your team to play the first round, but then you have a second bye. early in the season.
Yep.
You have to wait for your team to play. It's a bit of a mess around, and we've already now had to see them rearrange the schedule, rearrange the season's games just to try and fit in opening round.
We're going to have Essendon play Gold Coast like twice in a week in the final round of the season or something.
Yes.
It's just like...
And then they meet each other in the finals.
Essendon are not making finals.
No,
bro.
I'd love
Don't
them
know
to
what
make
you're
finals
talking
just to get
about.
pumped by Gold Coast. That would be funny.
No, it wouldn't.
Yes, it would.
No, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it would.
I would want to see North get pumped by Gold Coast.
I don't want to see North get pumped by anybody.
You've had that for the last 5 years. You should be used to it by now.
Yeah.
But back onto like the sort of game. Obviously, shout out to Darcy Cameron. It was fantastic. Perriman looked all right in his first game. Sam Taylor was awesome. Kicked the first goal of the season.
Which
Sam Taylor.
his first goal in what, 5-6 years?
I think almost ever. No Jesse Hogan. I'm Steph Sam Taylor.
Who cares about the Tom McCartan experiment? We've got the
exactly
Sam
right.
Taylor experiment now. That's beautiful. All right. Do we want to move on to
Kingsley McRae. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Are we done with this one? This one here? All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Kingsley
move
McRae.
on.
Let's have a look at this. So you can see McRae shouting his words. Ethan will love this clip. He shouts at him. Kingsley takes a look at him and look at McRae. I want you to look at McRae. He sits back down.
McRae is the most pussy moment I've ever seen from a coach. Like seriously. Adam Kingsley just like walks over him, puts his arms out so you could see his fucking huge biceps.
Yeah.
And Kingsley McRae just sits down like an absolute like it's like a tiny dog going up to a big dog.
Yeah, that's
the
one
big
way to do
dog
it.
barking, and then the tiny dog pees its pants.
Well, from what I had heard through interviews, Craig McRae's
a talker.
his kind of call there was just him talking about, get ready to fire up or something. I think from what he was
No.
trying to say, it was friendly banter. That was in the immediate post-match
From
press
what
conference.
I've heard, from what he said, it was about Bedford giving away a 50 and tagging Dacos and basically saying something along the lines of after the 50 happened, you shouldn't be doing that or something, or like stay or whatever it was. But then sort of Max Scorn came out and said that this is what McRae does. He's a talker. He likes to shit talk on the field.
Yeah.
Whether you get the $20,000 fine that Ken Hinkley got is a different story, because I don't think it's anywhere near as bad.
Well, that's what I want to quickly mention in regards to this clip is that what is, if any, kind of, I guess, backlash or, kind of a stern warning. What does the AFL do from here? Because this is quite, I want to say not too crazy. I was expecting, from all the headlines, I was expecting it to be a full-on, like, screaming match.
I thought like
And so to
McRae would have
see
said
this-
something insane to one of the
to
players
see
or
this,
something.
Was quite, I guess, underwhelming from what I expected. I've heard talks via, I think this footage is from the first crack, but through the first crack, they had mentioned that this should be a fine for both of the coaches, just as a heads up. Hey, we don't tolerate this. You guys are the coaches, Let your players do the rough and tough stuff. You guys just have to focus on your teams, right? That's your role. But at the same time, it's such a minuscule interaction, and they were both quite cordial about it at the back. I've heard some say it's the coaches' code, where they both kind of back each other up in the sense of not putting each other under the bus and like trying not to, make it so that, they're reaching into each other's pockets, basically. But I think this situation is very minuscule, a little bit of an
Overblown.
overreach from mainstream media.
100%.
And I think while it's an interesting look, and I think it's I honestly like it. I think it's quite cool to see them both going at each other in a friendly manner. It seems, because they were both cordial after the game. I think either you stamp it out now. I honestly wouldn't mind them going either way, just not too far, right? If they don't say a word about it, I'd be shocked. But if they give them a $20,000 fine, I'd be like, whoa. If they give them a couple thousand, I'll be like, yeah, okay, that's fair. At least stamp it out. Let them know, hey, we don't want this. Or at least publicly say, hi, we don't accept this. We've given them, please explain. They've explained it to us and we've let them keep going, but please don't do it.
Yeah, I think back on what you said where they give a fine to both coaches, I think this is where you don't need to give a fine to both, but just give it to McRae, because he's the one who instigated it. There's no need for giving Kingsley a fine when all he's done is basically show off his guns.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any need to give something to Kingsley because he's just backing up his players. McRae's the one who's gone out of his way to not bash on a player, but say some words to Toby Bedford. And all Kingsley's done is protect his own player. So I don't think there's any need to do anything to Kingsley. It should fall back on McRae. And I don't think coaches at all should be sitting on the bench and talking smack to the players. For the players to do that to other players, absolutely fine. But for the coach to do it, I think that's way out of pocket.
I think realistically, coaches shouldn't be interacting in that type of situation at all.
Yeah.
Right? They should be strictly focused on the game.
Yeah.
Like I said, let the players do their job. You do yours, and most of the time that sorts things out. But I don't agree with the idea of punishing one and not the other, especially because, like, I understand the idea of, you know, he's retaliated to his actions.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, the person who retaliates is completely understood by everybody. But I don't think in this situation, he very easily could have ignored it.
Oh, easily.
And like regular players will ignore that.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's something that just needs to be addressed now. Both sides understand, hey, let's put this in the past. Don't worry about it anymore. Let's get on with our jobs.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we
Get
have
on with our jobs.
So we have ourselves next up, kind of on the same point. We've done the ladder predictions already. We've gone 1 through 18 now. We want to do a bit of an early All-Australian squad prediction.
Love it.
So we have made up our teams. We won't have graphics, but we'll be able to mention our teams. Do we want to go backlines, then your backline, then my backline, your midfield, then my midfield, kind of go back and forth and compare?
I think doing backlines first is fine. I think we do my backline, your backline, my midfield, your midfield.
Yeah, bang on.
And then I think we'll finish with the bench. Just put 4 players on the bench. I don't know if you did a bench.
I did a bench too. It's all Australian 22. I'm going to put 22 in there.
Okay, good. You didn't do a 23. You didn't do the work thing. I love that shit.
We're on the same page. We're so good at this. We're so good. Let's go, baby. No. Oh, my miss. All right, backline. Let's go. Baby, ignore what just happened. Bam, we're going to go.
Okay, so my
Yep, sorry, go backline.
Okay, my backline starting off, we have Brandon Starcevich, Harris Andrews, Callum Wilkie, Tom Stewart, Sam Taylor, and Daniel Rioli.
Ooh.
A very interesting backline.
Very.
I love doing my thing where I have a set team that I love to follow. I think that that's the best way to win a championship, a premiership. I talked about that in my finals prediction on my Premiership Quarter channel. Go check it out if you want to. Yes, I have a shameless plug addiction.
Is that thing still active?
Nope.
What are you plugging? You ain't plugging anything that's alive.
I am plugging a 5-month-old video.
Yeah,
so
nice
it does
one.
not matter.
Fantastic.
But Starcevich, I think I've got Brisbane finishing top 4. He has been a crucial part to their success over the last 5 years, arguably the best lockdown defender. And I think now with a Brisbane team that has lost their forward line with Joe Danaher, I think that provides another spot for them to have a All-Australian caliber player. Similar to Harris Andrews, I think he makes the team this year. He was fantastic last year, was very unlucky to not make the final team. And I just think that he is a fullback. He's a great leader. He makes the team because he carries Brisbane's backline pretty much. Callum Wilkie, been in the team last 2 years. I don't know if he was in the squad or the actual team last year, but he's been fantastic. Always
Squad,
a lockdown.
I think.
Yeah, could have been the squad. Wilkie is just one of the best lockdown defenders you'll ever see. He does not lose one-on-ones. He plays every single game as well. Barely comes off as well. So he is a crucial piece to St Kilda's backline. Now that there's no Josh Battle as well, there's even more pressure on him to perform, and I think he takes that in every stride. You've got Tom Stewart. Whilst I don't have Geelong playing well, he always makes the All-Australian squad, except for last year, I think, because he didn't play enough games.
Yeah.
Sam Taylor, we saw how good he was on the weekend. If he stays fit, he makes it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's too impactful to ignore, and he's been putting up amazing one-on-one and defensive stats. Again, if he had played enough games, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, game 0 even of the season, and he's already showing people, hey, I'm still here.
We're not even
GWS has a fantastic midfield, but they've got star backmen as well.
We're not even in round 1 and is already being the best defender in the league this season. Crazy, right?
Insane.
And then Daniel Rioli. I think
That was the one I'm interested in.
I think now, obviously, I've got Gold Coast finishing the 8, so that's a big reason. But I think with proper key defenders around him, he will be absolutely unleashed off the half-back line. You got Collins, Ballard, and Mac Andrew probably playing along in the back line. And then you got Jeffrey, Powell, and Butterick alongside him. Potentially Noble if he wants to play on the half-back or wing.
Yeah.
He'll probably switch. But I just think he gets unleashed. He doesn't need to do any defensive work, and he will just be providing so much ball to the Gold Coast forward line that he could be easily a top 3 halfback flanker this year, alongside the likes of Sinclair, Houston, and all those, because he was really good for Richmond last year. And when he's in a successful team, it'll be even more important for them.
So, in regards to what you had been saying about Harris Andrews in the All-Australian backline, I kind of want to replace him because I had put Brisbane in the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
And haven't put Harris Andrews in this backline. And I agree with you. I think he's going to have a breakout. Oh, breakout is probably not the right word, but a good season. Another really, really good season.
So,
and if
you've got Brisbane 1, but not Harris Andrews.
Yeah, that's what I had originally, but I want to change that now.
Okay, good.
So Harris Andrews would be in there instead of probably Hayden Young.
Okay.
I was going to have Hayden Young in there, but I'd put...
Again, he could be also playing more midfield time this year.
That too. But my backline outside of that is James Sicily.
Yep.
And again, I think I mentioned this before we cut. It's just, I think I'm a little bit recency bias at the moment, mainly because I've seen the 4 teams who played an opening round play, and I've liked how some of them have played. But we do have some similar ones, like Sam Taylor is one that I have on there as well.
Good boy.
The other one that we have the same of, Dan Houston. Sorry. Did you not have Dan Houston?
Did not have Dan Houston.
I thought you had Dan. Who else did you have
Dan.
here?
I had Daniel Rioli and Tom Stewart.
That's right. That's the other one I had, Tom Stewart. I've got Tom in there. Again, he's going to need to play a big role in the back line, but I think he'll also get midfield minutes as they tried doing last year.
Yeah, probably.
But I think Tom Stewart will still mainly be a backman. Again, I feel like it's recency bias, but he absolutely could do it. Nick Blakey. I think Nick Blakey could be a great pick.
Yep.
And I think that makes out my 6. So it'd be Harris Andrews, James Sicily, Sam Taylor, Dan Houston, Nick Blakey, Tom Stewart.
Okay. Yep.
6.
Easy.
So in regards to reasonings, Sicily has, in the first glimpse shown that he's in his usual pest form in the back line. He's an incredible leader in there, continues to make outstanding plays, and now has given the opportunity to push forward to allow some change-ups there. And Sicily looks, he somehow did well in that position too. He played really well opening round. I really liked how he played.
My only concern with Sicily is if he's a swing man, does he do enough as a backman? Does he do enough as a potential winger? Because he could very well play wing. And does he do enough as a forward to go in any of those positions?
Yeah.
Because he could be playing a third, but that's not enough to take over someone in the back line, on the wing or in the forward line.
No,
that's
I
my
get
only
that.
concern.
I understand that completely. I think my thinking is he may get the back line pick purely off of reputation.
Yeah,
because we've seen it before, right? I think some players, because they've been so good for so long, if they stick up to form, even if they're not the best player in the year, they'll still get the pick because it's that standard. They're expected, and often it's because it's captaincy or high leadership, something like that, that brings him in. Sicily being the captain of Hawthorn, absolute reason why I'd see him getting a spot over someone else. Sam Taylor, opening round was fantastic. And we hope that he stays that way for the rest of the season because he has been a gun for many, many seasons, but we definitely think this year could be the year. I've gone down Houston, and I think you had mentioned in your side of things that stronger teams, especially in the back line, right? I was surprised with the Jeremy McGovern pick last year, although he had a fantastic season. It was West Coast.
It wasn't even fantastic. It was one of the greatest back defensive seasons.
Yeah, and so maybe that's the reason he got it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get over the fact that West Coast is 16th, man. And you're saying
we've seen people in 18th get an Australian.
Yeah, but for the back line?
Yeah. It's he genuinely some of his advantage.
Maybe I'm looking over Jeremy McGovern. But Dan Houston will be hit on a good Collingwood side, we expect. Not the greatest start from what I saw. Was he?
He wasn't playing.
Yeah, I was going to say, he wasn't even
still
playing, was
suspended.
he? Yeah, that's right. But Dan Houston could absolutely have another good season with a new team. Maybe that's the reason he doesn't get over the mark. But Dan Houston has absolutely shown he could do it.
Yep.
Last year, for example. And I think with a team like this, he will need to be at his best. Nick Blakey, he is not just a good player, he's also an exciting player, runs from the back line. We've seen him kick big goals too, so he's effective in multiple areas. Good one-on-one defender when he needs to be, but obviously he's got that. He's that hybrid, right? He's a hybrid of the linking kick, the one-on-one defender, the one who can push forward a little bit to get that extra push in. And I think even though I don't have Sydney having the greatest year, I think I still had them in the top 8.
You had them 8th, like right on.
They were somewhere around 6 to 8. I still see Nick Blakey being a big reason as to why they're so good this year. And Tom Stewart. Tom Stewart has been a leader for quite some time, both in the back line and obviously this year. And a bit last year with the midfield minutes. So he's just getting more and more roles, more and more responsibility, and he seems to be taking it with stride. And the reason I had Hayden Young was because I believe with Fremantle's step up in the ladder that I had, I believe people like him needed to make a step up. He's absolutely primed for it. The injury doesn't help him, and so that's why I took him out for Harris Andrews.
You can still probably make it with 20 games played, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I'm not saying that he can't do it, but I'm thinking players like Harris Andrews probably could do it over the top of him, especially if I think they're going to have the year they're about to have. So
yeah, for sure.
So that's our backline. Anything that surprises you from mine at all?
Not overly. I think Blakey shout is fair. Dan Houston, maybe, because I just think there could be a bit of a biding time where he takes his time to get into this new system.
Yep.
Because it's very different to how Port Adelaide play.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Hayden Young, understandable. I just think that potentially he's not going to be in the back line. That's all. If he makes it, I think he'll probably be on the wing because that's where they put players like him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Other than that, perfectly acceptable team.
Cool.
Let's go to my midfield and wingers. My ruckman. You will never guess who I have. I want you to guess right now.
Rowan Marshall.
Nope.
Tristan Sherry.
Nope.
Max Gorn.
Nope.
Brody Grundy.
Nope.
Riley O'Brien.
Nope.
Jared Witts.
Nope.
What the hell? Who am I? Darcy Cameron?
Nope. It's not Tim English. This guy last year missed out on the grand final.
Big O.
Big O.
Oh, okay. No, I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
I think if Brisbane want to get there again, he's going to be the one because he missed out on last year. Obviously, he gave all the rewards to Darcy Fort. Obviously, that connection was fantastic. I think he will push them, and I think this is the year he absolutely takes the mantle. He was fantastic last year. He doesn't really have the game of an All-Australian ruckman, but I think he gets recognised this year. Got Nick Dacos, Caleb Sarong, and Paddy Cripps as my 3 midfielders. Dacos, no surprise, obviously cramping, all that stuff on the weekend. He's still fantastic. I do need one in there. Sorry, Ethan. It's just the one. Caleb Sarong, I had...
He's like, why is Josh not in there?
Caleb Sarong, I had finishing 3rd in my Brownlow, so obviously he's going to be in my midfield. Yep. He's probably Fremantle's best midfielder now. He was fantastic last year. He's going to absolutely push on the Brownlow this year. And whilst I still have Fremantle just missing the 8, they're still going to be very, very good and probably win 14 games this year.
Yep.
And then Paddy Cripps, obviously, pretty obvious pick there.
He's Brownlow medalist. He just has to put up even like 3/4 of a season he had, which obviously is still a lot. Like, to be named All-Australian, you still have to have a good season, but we know it won't. Even if he doesn't hit the peak of his usual, he'll still get an All-Australian spot.
And then my 2 wingers, I haven't picked a single winger.
Yeah, neither. Technically.
Errol Goulden's in. Okay, mine's kind of like half-half. Errol Goulden's injured. I don't think D'Ambrosio will get to that height again. I don't think Dacos will get to that height again. Speaking about Josh, who else can you talk about there, really? There's not that many elite level wingers that will be able to get to the All-Australian level.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I've gone someone who's played on the wing a little bit in Sam Walsh. And I've gone Harry Sheasel.
On the wing?
On the wing.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess.
Sheasel isn't an in-and-in midfielder.
I was going to say he's not in midfielder. He's not really. He's kind of a floater at the moment.
Exactly. So you sort of get that sometimes where a midfielder plays out. I think I had Nick Dacos on the wing last year.
Yeah.
So I sort of see him doing something similar. I think that he will help North Melbourne get a bit better. I think they could win easily 5 to 7 games this year, which is what they should be doing. And I think that with how he plays with damage up forward is going to be really important. You've got now midfield support around him to the point he doesn't need to be in there. And I think sacrificing that a little bit to get more damage in front of the ball is really important. And then Sam Walsh, I have Carlton finishing 5th or 8th or something. So having 2 in there makes sense because I actually got 3. But I think having Sam Walsh having a big year is a big reason as to why Carlton, even with all the injuries, will still make finals.
Yeah, okay. I think Sam Walsh often does find himself like kind of behind Paddy Cripps a lot, and maybe the reason why he doesn't get himself those picks. But he's going to have a fantastic year. He's going to have a really, really good year if they're both going to make it, I reckon.
He's in their team tonight playing, so I think he should be fine.
Yeah. I think, look, I'm okay with most of that. I think I'm surprised by the big 0-1. I like it because I think it would be awesome. But he just doesn't have the type of game that gets recognised in all Australians, does it? Unless he was to be a ruckman that is so dominant and so good in terms of taps to advantage and pressure acts and stuff like that.
I just wanted that pick. I loved him. I think he deserves it.
Fair enough. Yeah, look, fair enough. But at the same time, I guess my pick's kind of like that as well because my ruck's Tristan Sherry.
Who would have guessed?
Exactly. Look, I want to be a little biased, right? Let me have a little bit of bias. So I have Tristan Sherry in there, and I think it's a realistic pick because he had himself in the squad last year. Then again, you could say Rowan Marshall should have been.
He was the best ruckman last year, and he didn't get into the All Australian squad.
Look, Darcy Cameron's also good, but I was more shocked that Rowan got booted over Darcy Cameron and Tristan Sherry.
Yeah.
I think in my head, I'm like, it's probably going to go to Gawn, or it's going to go to Grundy, or it's going to go to or Marshall. It's going to go to one of those 3 that All Australian spot. So when I found that neither Grundy nor Marshall made it into the squad, I'm like, whoa.
So
as soon as I saw that Gawn was the last one, I'm like, okay, Gawn's getting it. Yeah, that's it. But I think Tristan had himself a fantastic year last year, bit of a breakout season for him. And I think if North Melbourne can improve, as my hopeful prediction had.
Yeah, you had them fucking 10th. Obviously, they're going to improve.
I think Tristan Sherry, that just means his game's going to be a bit smarter, I reckon.
Yeah.
I think he has the tools to be dominant, but often a lot of criticism I'd heard is that it's more just, boot to ball, not much thought in it. And that's a completely fair criticism. There was absolutely times where it happened. But yeah, I think Tristan Sherry, if North to improve, then he'd get the nod.
Fair dude.
Because I reckon he'll have the stats and a bit more of the favourable.
What's your midfield? Let's move on.
Yeah. I've got Caleb Sarong.
Fair.
Nick Dacos.
Fair.
Noah Anderson as centre.
Yep.
So I really was quite interested in your Brownlow pick for him. Well, not him being number 1, but obviously him being in the top 3.
Yeah.
That was what I was really looking at. I'm like, it could be his year, They're primed with a lot of good players. He's now the captain for that team. He should most likely get himself a lot more involvement.
He's going to get probably more than 14 votes in his first 6 games.
Yeah, he's just my pick. Very inconsistent.
Very inconsistent. Last year was home versus away.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's the reason Gold Coast lost. It was home versus away. Yeah. They were really good at home, could beat anyone at home for most of the year, and then
they were
away
10-1 and then 2-11 or something away.
They sucked away.
Yeah.
I think they lost a Q clash to Brisbane. That was their only loss at home. But yeah, I think Noah Anderson, this could definitely be a big year for him. A lot of leadership now on his shoulders. And again, I don't have much hope in Gold Coast, but I really like the pick.
Yeah.
And I think Noah Anderson absolutely could. In terms of, I guess, I haven't really picked wingers per se. I've kind of picked 5 midfielders, really.
That's perfectly fine.
I've picked Bont and Cripps. They're just safe picks.
Yeah.
They're safe picks.
Yeah.
I was very scared as to who I was to pick for because I didn't want it to all be so similar. But I like my midfield picks of Sarong, Dacos, and Anderson. I think Anderson is centre specifically.
Yeah, I get that. I just had a moment of realisation. Marcus Bontempelli is injured for the first 6 weeks. He's not going to make the All-Australian squad off of 17 games.
Yeah, you could be right. Yeah. Is it 6 weeks?
He could miss until round 5 or 6.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. He could get away with it. Early season injury, unless he gets injured again midway through the season, then it's completely done.
I think I've got him on my team. I do. But I think now that I've just realised that, I could see him missing. But I'll still have him in my team.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well,
I agree. The missing any games, right? It's probably
Yeah.
the reason we've taken out Errol. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I don't know if you've taken him out, but
he's missing
again,
like 2
he
months.
could. Errol's probably a more extreme, but
Yeah.
Bont's not that far off in terms of like missed
No.
games.
Yeah.
But
Move on.
again, I think those are safe picks, and they can.
Yeah.
There's definitely someone wrong in here.
Yeah.
100%.
There's always going to be people wrong.
100% wrong.
Just build my
But
theory.
people are often confident in their picks. I'm not confident at all.
I mean, you've got safe and you're not confident, so who knows?
Yeah, I know, exactly. Like, Bont could be out for a little bit. Sarong may not have
Yeah.
the bounce we expect. Dacos could fall off. Who knows? I know that most of the AFL world hopes that Dacos falls off, but, I hope not. I've got a lot of money kind of riding on him as well, so let's go to the forward
Gamble
line.
responsibly.
Thank you for that.
Okay, forward line. Jason Horne-Francis. Charlie Curnow.
What? You have what in the forward line?
Charlie Curnow. Marcus Bontempelli. Charlie Cameron. Nick Larkey. And Ben Ainsworth.
What the hell is... Hold on, can you repeat this all for me? I need to ingest this.
Jason Horne-Francis.
Yep.
Charlie Curnow.
Uh-huh.
Marcus Bontempelli. Charlie Cameron. Nick Larkey. Ben Ainsworth.
Okay, so the Bont makes a little bit more sense to me because Heaney got himself a forward spot last
Yep.
year, and he was much more of a midfielder.
Yep.
But that being said, Heaney played for the minor premiers that season.
But it's Bont. When you're talking about getting it based off of legacy, and basically what Tom Stewart did, basically, or James Sicily, where they just get it based off of reputation, that's where I have Bont doing it.
Okay, I was expecting him interchange.
I've got a couple others on interchange that we will get to later.
Yeah, we'll
that
get to
you've
that.
had in your team.
Yep.
So it's not like I'm missing them.
Yep.
Charlie Cameron, no Joe Danaher this year. I don't see Eric Hipwood finishing third in the Brownlow like you do. Third
Brownlow?
in the Coleman.
If he was third in Brownlow, that'd be a monumental upgrade for Brisbane.
But I see Charlie Cameron getting back to his absolute best this year.
Yeah.
I think
That's a good pick.
if we've got Brisbane in the top 4, they're going to need goals from somewhere. They've lost Lincoln McCarthy to an ACL already this year.
That's awful, man.
Absolutely horrible. And on
He
the
had
same
such an
knee.
up and down career too.
Yeah, and on the same knee. So it's really unfortunate, but I see him getting back to it. He's got support around him still with his small forwards, so I think he's really important. Jason Horne-Francis and Ben Ainsworth. Those are 2 names that not many people would have.
Ainsworth
in
is
their
Gold
All-Australian.
Coast, right?
Ainsworth is Gold Coast, the number 9. I had him finishing in my squad last year. He didn't get quite to that levels, but I think he can average 22 to 25 touches and over a goal a game.
If Gold Coast and break out like you think they can, there is a chance.
That's the reason. I have Gold Coast finishing in the, I think, 6th. So me having, I think, 3 Gold Coast players in my All-Australian squad makes sense off the back of that.
Yeah.
But Jason Horne-Francis, no butters to the start of the year. And I just think that's a big reason why he breaks out into this All-Australian squad. I can't remember if he made the squad last year, but I think he's one that makes the half-forward flank as a midfielder because that's what the All-Australian squad does.
Yeah.
And then Curnow and Larkey. I've got Curnow winning my Coleman and Larkey finishing 3rd. It sort of makes sense.
Yeah. I think a lot of forward is based off of Coleman predictions, right? So,
Yeah.
For example, my Coleman predictions, I haven't got Eric Hipwood in there,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got Nick Larkey and Jesse Hogan, who are 1 and 2.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that makes sense. But
Yeah.
in terms of, there was a lot to think of there, but you've got some decent explanations, right? Jason Horne-Francis, as much as I hate to say it, is a good player. He I think the All-Australian is absolutely a possibility. Forward line is an interesting one, but again, he does get that rotation time in there. He could be that Isaac Heaney type this year, where he's such a good midfielder that he gets put in the forward line because they need to put him somewhere.
He's also the type of midfielder and / forward that sort of gets into that role because that's the player that everyone loves.
Yeah.
Right? Your Dusties, your Bonds, the Heaneys of the world, the Jordan De Goeys of the world, that are midfielders at times but can also
Go forward and kick some goals.
Yeah. So I sort of see that's where, because he could kick 30 goals and average 25 touches this year very easily.
Yeah, there's a chance. Absolutely. Ben Ainsworth, like you said, depends on how Gold Coast do this year. I'm trying to think of any other forwards who may potentially take that from him. I really like the Charlie Cameron pick. That's one I really like. I think that's very logical as well. Joe Danaher being gone, he needs to step up. It's why I put Hipwood in third for the Coleman, because he needs to step up. He's going to get a lot more target. But Cameron as well, he's going to need to step up too. And I think, especially with Lincoln McCarthy gone, he is now the main... I mean, I think he always was, but you know, less help means he has to put more on his shoulders. There's an absolute chance that he has an All-Australian season. And so I'm actually going to make a last-minute change because I want to put him in a spot. He's not going to go into my forward line. He's going to go into my interchange, and I'll tell you why in a sec.
Okay.
So forward line, like I said, Nick Larkey, Jesse Hogan, Shea Bolton.
Yep.
Fremantle.
I was very tempted to put him in.
I put Shea Bolton.
Yep.
Fremantle are looking to have a good season, and so I thought Shea.
Only difference is you had him higher in you had them higher in the ladder compared to me. That's the only difference, basically.
I'm even tempted to kind of switch him out with Charlie Cameron because again, I really like that pick. That's a really good pick. But Shea Bolton, I think, in a perfect situation to have a great season.
Yep.
Jeremy Cameron, he remains a really, really solid forward every single year and has even gotten midfield time before and still done well in there. So, I mean, Cameron absolutely has shown no sign of stopping that.
Yep.
I've got Heaney in again. I think Heaney can still do it, especially with less midfield interruption to start the year. He can have himself a similar start he had last year. And finally, Isaac Rankin.
Yeah, I should have had a Rankin in mind.
Yeah, I've got Isaac Rankin in there.
100%.
We both know how impactful he can be.
Yeah.
I think more in your case, I'm surprised he's not in there.
Yeah.
Over a Ben Ainsworth because
I very much regret
you had.
that.
Yeah, you have.
I'm just making a change now.
Yeah.
He's in my team on my bench.
On your bench. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, like I said, Isaac Rankin is a very, very flashy player. Someone who can definitely change the tide and the momentum of a game. And not just that, he can get his hands on the ball when necessary. He can get quiet sometimes, which is what I kind of worry for.
That's what happens with your forward midfielders.
Exactly. Like again, I think we're on the same page when it comes to those types of players. We know that they're not always going to show out, but when they do, they show why they're so necessary to the club. Yeah, I guess in the sense of surprises, maybe people are surprised to see Isaac Heaney because they've seen him play already, and I don't know if he played like all Australian caliber, but it's one game.
Yeah. I want to make a change. When I talked about Bontempelli potentially not playing, I'm switching him with Heaney. I think given I have Sydney first, I should have had Heaney in.
Yeah. No, that's all good. I think, as long as we can like explain ourselves as to why we're making certain changes, I feel like it's fine to make those changes because I think while we probably made these lists in, 30 minutes?
Maybe.
For me, it was 30 minutes at 8 o'clock last night, which is like an hour past my bedtime. No, but I'm pretty solid and pretty confident with most of my forward picks. I wouldn't say they're safe. Like, I think Shea Bolton isn't a safe pick, but is a good pick. Same with Isaac Rankin. Again, it's the ones who are very on and off that are often the ones that change the most. So I'm confident with my picks. I like them. I think they're probably my safest picks out of my back, mid, and forwards.
Yeah, fair enough. On our bench now, I have Nick Blakey, which you had in your team.
My team.
100% makes the team, honestly, this year. I think he pretty much made it last year, I think.
I can't remember, but...
he was definitely in the squad. I can't remember if he made the team.
Yeah.
Noah Anderson.
That's another...
Obviously. He just doesn't make it because he doesn't have the name as a Dacos Cripps.
That's definitely...
even a Sarong. Chad Warner, I've got in my bench.
Yep.
And then the one change that I did make aside from the Heaney Bont is I moved Rankin in over Jeremy Cameron.
Okay. So Jeremy Cameron gets the boot.
Yeah, Cameron gets the boot. I
Rankin
have Geelong finishing outside the 8, and that probably means they don't deserve 2 All-Australians, and that means Rankin makes a team. So the one that I have right on the outside is Will Day. He was the one who was potentially making it over Chad Warner, given how good we saw him against Sydney, because he was fantastic. But I think Rankin, obviously, I talked about in my Adelaide prediction where I have him really, really breaking out this year as basically a midfielder. But obviously, he's that player that still damages in the forward line, similar to Horn Francis. And then Chad Warner, we saw how good he was last year.
Yep.
So without Errol Goulden now, he takes a bit of extra responsibility, and I think he takes that in his stride.
Beautiful. I think, very well explained. I think most of it makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised with the Jeremy Cameron boot, if I'm being honest. I think Jeremy Cameron is so necessary to what Geelong does.
But again, we've got them very different on the ladder.
That too. Yeah,
So
no, that's fair.
I've got them 12th, you've got them 3rd.
I've got them in the top 4, I'm pretty sure.
That's very different.
So it's going to be a very interesting look to see how that forward line shapes out.
Yeah, very
I think
interesting.
we were very, very all over the place with that forward line. But at the same time, I think a lot of it makes sense, right? We made we made the necessary changes.
So long as you make an argument and provide valid reasons for your pick, you cannot say that it's wrong because it's a prediction.
All right.
Right? You can disagree, but you cannot say that it's wrong.
Okay, so my first pick for my interchange are Harry Sheasel.
Yeah, I've got him on
I was
my
going to
team.
say it's fair, but I just like that I bring a North player on as soon as you mention that.
I've got him on my team, so I can't argue with you.
Yeah, my first interchange is Harry Sheasel. Mm-hmm. This one will really... Tom Barrass as my second. I think with the situation he's in, and I expect Hawthorn to have a fantastic season, he absolutely could get the nod.
I just don't think he's good enough, honestly.
That's fair.
He never made it alongside McGovern. So why would he make it alongside Sicily and Battle?
Better team.
Are they?
Hawthorn over West Coast?
Then 2020 West Coast? The team like that?
No, we're talking about last year's West Coast. Because McGovern made it last year, remember?
Yeah. McGovern made it over Barrass.
Yeah, I know, because you mentioned of his season, right? But I'm saying Barrass is going to be in a better situation where more eyes and more positive outcomes look at him.
But less on him to do anything. He doesn't need to do as much as McGovern did last year.
I understand what that means, but at the same time, when things are going well, your actions and your stats look a lot better, right? Sherry had some fantastic stats last year, but no one was giving him All-Australian.
But he made it.
No, he didn't. He made the squad.
But he made the squad. No one was
We're
giving him
talking about All-Australian. We're talking about All-Australian, right? Maxi Gawn made it because Max Gawn played for a better team.
So theoretically, you would have Andrews, Taylor, Sicily, and Barrass as your All-Australian key backs. It's too much.
Fair enough. I think just with the situation he's in now, he's going to get the nod. Next up,
Disagree.
I actually switched out Connor Rozee for Charlie Cameron.
Okay. Yeah.
And you'll find out why in a sec. It's in a different segment, but Connor Rozee out, Charlie Cameron in. Again, as I said, I really like the pick.
Yep.
The situation he's in, a fantastic situation for him to be realistically, although he'd absolutely love to have Lincoln McCarthy around him and Joe Danaher there to help him out. He's going to get more opportunities. And finally, Lachie Neale.
Yep.
Brisbane, like I said, number 1. My thought was, is there anyone there who could beat him? McCluggage, Dunkley, Ashcroft. Ashcroft is one that could break out, but I don't think All-Australian squad maybe for Ashcroft.
I think that's still a bit too soon.
Yeah,
and Dunkley's not the type of player to make an All-Australian.
Yeah, which is I personally can't be bothered with that type of sentiment because it's like he doesn't play in an All-Australian way. What the hell does that mean?
It's more so.
But I also understand what you're saying, right? When you think of, I think it's just purely ladder type. Like club ladder type situation where Lachie Neale is going to get put above everyone else because it's Lachie Neale. He's won a Brownlow before. Yeah. He's going to get that look. Yeah, he's won 2 Brownlows. Yeah. He's going to get that look over Dunkley. Even if Dunkley were to have a better year, even if McCluggage were to look more impactful on the stat sheet, Lachie Neale's going to get the nod if he plays up to his standard.
Yeah.
And that's my team.
Okay, fair enough.
So it looks like Tom Barrass was your biggest gripe with it all. And that, again, I understand the thinking behind it, right, in that even in a team where he shined next to and had Jeremy McGovern to help him out, he still didn't get the nod. But I think purely from optics standpoint, people will look at how Hawthorn are playing and equate it to, all right, who on Hawthorn is playing well? And they'll look at Barrass. They'll look at Sicily. They may even look into the midfield. They'll look at Day. They'll look at Newcomb. They weren't doing that with West Coast. The only reason they put West Coast's 2 play... Can you believe West Coast had 2 All-Australians last year?
Watermelon.
Watermelon.
Lloyd Milk and Jake Watermelon.
You still got the fat kid mentality, bro. You're always thinking about food. Oh, that's good. But yeah, West Coast had 2 All-Australians. Jake Waterman, because he had a breakout season and was in the top 3 for the goals. Sorry, got a tears in my eyes.
We've got 2 shorts now to go through. Lloyd Milk and Jake Watermelon.
This shouldn't be happening twice. And obviously McGovern for his fantastic year. That's the only reason they looked at West Coast and said, okay, these guys get spots, because they had outstanding outlier seasons. They didn't do that with Barras, because Barras didn't have that massive outlier season. No. But his potential peak, I believe, could be All-Australian
it's also,
side.
So you're saying McGovern outshined Barras last year, right? Mm-hmm. Would Sicily then not be doing the same thing if he's also in your squad?
Not in the sense if Hawthorn are winning.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay. Well, I think it's time to move on anyway. Yep. We've talked about that plenty enough.
Yeah.
And it's now time to do...
Watermelon. Oh, my God.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, all right. Move on to your next one, Behm Watermelon.
Bemmy's Tribunal.
That is the best photo. Why is your chin cut half off, bro? Who did this Photoshop job?
You could tell it wasn't me or Rhys, because we know how to do thumbnails. Clearly, Ethan doesn't. But
that's good. No, I love this. What are you talking about? This is fantastic.
This is absolutely.
This is actually when Ben
riveting.
walks out the podcast room. This is like he got the cameras in his face. Fox News, Fox Sports.
Bro, imagine Fox Sports just comes out to Homestand one time.
What are you doing, mate?
What are your thoughts on Andrew Dillon?
Oh, God, no, I'm all right.
But this week, I still want to focus it around the push in the back, because guess what? There was another one this weekend.
Yep.
Kieran Briggs got knocked out after being pushed into the contest by Darcy Cameron. Ethan, how do you feel about Collingwood screwing over another player?
Is this where he talks?
Don't answer that, Ethan.
Yeah, don't
I'm just
answer that.
being a little...
Yeah, he'll start glazing Collingwood. We don't want to hear that.
But once again, we have seen a player push someone into a contest and the player gets injured. You scrap this against the Ruben Jinby incident and it doesn't happen anymore. I'm sorry, it's just as simple as that.
Oh, look, because it's happened again, I'm more like... I want to agree with you more because, right, he's come off with an even bigger injury.
This was an immediate concussion.
Stretched out the stadium.
He was done for as soon as he got pushed into the pack.
Yeah.
And you outlaw this before it gets bad and there's no worries. But the AFL, once again, are not being proactive. They're being reactive. They're not stomping their foot down and saying, nope, this is not part of our game. We don't want this. They are allowing players to get away with things, and it's just going to continue. Every step, a domino is going to fall. And very well next week, or this coming week, we could see a player get concussed again, and he won't be suspended. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, because I don't think he got suspended this week.
Well, I was going to say, even after that happening, no one's talked about how it happened. Everyone talks about it as he's just flying into the contest.
The only one who I continue to see talking about it is David King. And whilst there are many things I don't agree with about David King, there are still some that I agree with. And he is still the one advocating for a complete scrap of the current tribunal system and for this stuff to get outlawed. He's very heavy on the concussion stuff, and I love it. I think I have not personal experience with me, but many close people to me that have experienced concussion, and it is really serious. And to just allow this continue to happen, we've had 3 concussions, a broken shoulder, and one player who got very lucky. Like, we cannot keep allowing this in our game. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how the players would react to a change like that as well. I think because it often looks very subtle, right? And I think that's the reason why it hasn't been talked about so much. And I'm very surprised at something like that. Like, it's still got its headlines, but more in the positive sense of, Kieran Briggs, he's doing okay now. He's cheering on the boys from hospital, stuff like that. But when we talked about Kingsley versus McCrae, that got more headlines.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting to see. And maybe it's
two
because...
words.
And I feel like that in itself is kind of a showing as to how this is going to be reacted to and how this is going to be sorted out, because it feels like until it's something even more major, God forbid if that happens, then it's just going to not being swept under the rug, but ignored. Like, because it hasn't even been addressed. It's more just in the old school, thoughts and prayers type thing. I'm starting to lean more in your direction, right? I very much was like, when you first brought this up and we saw the actions happening in the preseason rounds, I thought could have been incidental, could have been just a one-on-one contest where they've gone to put their body into him to give themselves positioning, and they've pushed him into the contest. That's actually happening, and they've misjudged it and hurt him. Right, it's completely incidental. It's a football play, and they can get something like that.
Which was the Dan Curtin one against Starcevic. Unfortunately, Starcevic got concussed.
Yeah,
but that's just a side result of players playing the game and a player being involved in a one-on-one situation, trying to do good body work, and it's just unfortunate. But this one is not unfortunate because he had the chance to not push him in the back, because it wasn't in a one-on-one where you were trying to move your player out of the way. He was behind him. Briggs had the spot to be able to take the intercept mark, and he simply pushed him in the back for no reason, and it's just unacceptable. But I think it's now time to move on to something similar, where it is still part of the tribunal and the AFL's policy.
Lots of serious topics today on the podcast, man. Zero access footy, they're getting serious. I'll tell you what.
You know what's also really serious? Jake Watermelon.
Jake Watermelon makes me very serious. Can we have a press pass, please?
Can't wait to see your edit on the short this week where you got a Jake and a watermelon.
That's going to be so good. That's going to be easy, though.
Is it going to be him kicking a watermelon?
No, it's going to be him being the watermelon. That's easy. Ooh. That's easy as.
Nathan Buckley came out on SEN this week talking about the AFL's illicit drug policy. And if we now want to switch to it, he made some fantastic comments on it. He is very against what they have ruled so far. He has basically said that in his experience, whether it is a coach, an assistant coach, whatever, he said it is basically disconnecting the AFL and their clubs, right? They are trying to do too much in terms of supporting the players, allowing them to do whatever they want in the off-season or during the season. We had it big when it came to Joel Smith, who is now suspended for 2 years. But what happened with Simon Goodwin, what happened with a lot of other players, Bailey Smith, Elijah Hollands, and there were a couple others, they got 2, 3, 4 week suspensions. If you, as a worker, are employed and get caught using illicit drugs, whether that's in the off-season or during work, chances are you're getting fired, right? You are allowed to do whatever you want. And it's not the AFL handing down these policies for the most part either. It's the AFL allowing the clubs to do it. And why would a club want to suspend their player for more than what they would want? Why would a club suspend their player for 11 months? We saw this with Ben Cousins. It can ruin a player's career. Make it so that if you do something stupid, you are punished rewardingly or consequentially. Because at the moment, players will continue to do it because they know they'll get away with it for 2 weeks. And it won't matter whatsoever. It is allowing younger people, people who look up to these players to think, oh, it's okay and I can do this whenever I want. It is unacceptable and it is literally illegal. You cannot do drugs. And when there is video proof of players doing these drugs, nothing is made of it. And it genuinely makes me want to punch something. How are you allowing? It's literally illegal.
You raise a good point. And yeah, I do like the headline of take drugs or play footy. It's not both. You get paid to be a professional athlete. To use illicit and illegal drugs like that shouldn't be a question of whether, it should be allowed or how long. I think I had listened to the Waitley clip because that's where this originated from. And he had mentioned that he wants the disconnect between the two to stop, right? So the AFL have been very lenient in the terms of the small suspensions and
Yep.
the small fines that they give them, and the AFL club itself is obviously not going to want to fire that player, especially if it's someone like Bailey Smith. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If your player is considered a star player, and even in Bailey Smith's sense, he's bringing a lot of money to the club.
He's basically a personal, like, sponsor board.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that he got caught with that probably had the Dogs shitting themselves.
Yeah.
So I think with the Dogs in that situation, yeah, you could definitely say some fault on the Dogs side for not being more serious about it. But Buckley had mentioned in a similar vein that, right, he doesn't want them gone from the game, but he wants a harsh suspension. And then if they do it again, a harsher suspension.
100%.
And just keep the harsh suspensions going in a more harsh form if it keeps happening to the point where they lose their job. And it's an unfortunate reality, I guess, in regards to this. It's a lot of money for especially for younger people, right? Brodie Smith, how old was he when he was caught with this?
Not Brodie Smith, Bailey Smith.
Sorry,
I
Bailey
think it was
Smith.
probably 22. 22 makes sense.
Still fairly young,
Yep.
right? He's making dumb decisions, as young people do. And that's not a reason to kind of let him go with something like this and to let him get away with it. But you'd hope that they're correctly supporting him, right? Tell him, hey, we need to give you a punishment, but we're going to be there for you as well.
Yep.
And I feel like, not in terms of the drugs, but when I think of this, I think of the Taron Thomas situation because it ended with him losing his job.
Yep.
Would you say that was the correct way of handling it?
I think...
Or should they have been harsher before he eventually lost his job?
Well,
Because they're both very bad actions, right?
the Taron
What he
Thomas
did.
one is different because not that in the sense it's you shouldn't be punished for it, but taking drugs and what he did, two completely separate things. Both are illegal, but they're two separate things, right? One makes you a bad person, one makes you do a dumb decision, right? I think obviously what he did should be outlawed and you should never return to the game whatsoever, right? It's unforgivable that you are allowed to take drugs during the off season if you want to, but guess what? There are consequences to those actions. It shouldn't mean you lose your job permanently. It should just mean you do not get allowed to get away with it. Imagine if Taron Thomas was allowed to get away with what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine if he got an 11-week suspension.
I feel like there's some people who even no matter how much you punish them, they will keep going back to it. But if you at least let them know from the beginning, it comes with a harsh reality that this is not acceptable, then you end up stomping it out a bit quicker. And you also have to think on the human side of things, right? When you suspend them for 11 weeks, it shouldn't just be, all right, no contact from us, you're done for 11 weeks.
It
And I
should
don't
be
think
rehab.
they do that. I don't think they do
No.
that. But because from what Buckley had mentioned, a lot of people within the club do try to help. But the fact that the AFL really doesn't do much to kind of deal with any of that. And I think that's kind of what Buckley is bringing on, is the disconnect. That's what he's most harping on about. And I think, one, it's a good thing to harp on about because realistically, the more help you get from all angles, the less something like this can happen and the better off everyone is within the four walls of every club. But you also don't come across as robotic.
No.
And
It's
I
not
think with
2
something
weeks
like
suspension, 2 weeks suspension.
like this,
And then a media response.
it can't be planned media response. We at the AFL don't like what he's done and
then
wish him the best.
the
And
player-
hopefully he finds himself. It's
The
like,
player coming out with
come
a
on, man.
with a little Instagram video saying, "I really do apologize. I shouldn't have done it." But then next off season they'll go and do the same shit.
yeah, exactly. But I guess I really like the way Bucks had presented this problem. He comes off passionate. He spoke really well on it, and Buckley's becoming one of my favorite media members.
Absolutely.
I think he's really. I feel like humble's not the right word, but smart about what he says.
He makes sure to think through everything he says.
He's got a point. He's got a point to what he says, and he doesn't say it for the sake of clicks like some people will do, like
okay,
we will
go on.
do. Okay. We'll go after someone else then. I was going to say like we will do. Fucking Jake Watermelon.
Oh, shut up.
All right. Let's move on from that.
Let's move.
We've got a
on.
fun segment now. We've got
Yes.
overrated v underrated. So this is a very, very rushed one.
Yep.
Because we
Needed content for
struggled
this episode.
so hard.
We needed the content for this episode, and we did it very quickly.
That too, but look, we struggled so hard to figure some players out. We tried to make it work. So please, if someone for some reason is watching this who is on this list, we don't mean it mean or in any sense like that. And if you're underrated, just know we believe in you and we care for you. We believe and care for you if you're on the overrated side too. Please, please don't get angry at us. I don't know. I struggle so hard to do these ones because like
it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Every AFL player realistically is very good.
Oh, they're so good. They're in the AFL in the first place.
Exactly. Oh,
But
man.
let's start with my overrated tier list.
Here we go.
This is to you: Jacob Wiedering, Finn Callaghan, Zach Merritt, Andy Brayshaw, Josh Battle, and Jordan DeGoey. It's a different list. That is my actual list. But to those players that I just named, fuck you.
What the? I just
Look at those.
I just
who
did
were those
so
players?
much. I just did so much to tell them that we love you and care for you
No, no,
so
no, no,
much,
no,
and we
no,
don't
no.
mean it.
No, no, no,
and
no,
you
no.
go and say some shit like that.
No. Take a guess at what those players mean to me. Who were those players? Jacob Wiedering, Finn Callaghan.
Players who've denied the Saints.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yes. You are nowhere near good enough for the St Kilda Football Club.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's move on to my actual list now.
Why did you bring that up? Why did you have just a random rant like that? What was that?
I wanted to get that out of the way. That was needed. Finn Callaghan, you deserve it for playing so good on the weekend. But my actual overrated, in third, Isaac Heaney. Second, Jesse Hogan. And first, Aaron Norton. Isaac Heaney, fantastic last year. Have him in my All-Australian again this year. But I think how good he was for the first 10 weeks is very, very difficult to get again. And people think that's what he is now. He's always been an up and down player. He's always had a year where he makes the All-Australian squad and then a year where he doesn't do the same thing. Whilst I have him making the team again this year, I don't think he reaches that height that he did for the first 10, 15 weeks. But I think he's a lot more consistent over the season. I also just needed a name. I really struggled to get these people.
Do you think you've picked Isaac Heaney because he was considered a Brownlow contender last year?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It definitely plays a part.
Especially
Jesse-
after how his season or his
Ended.
previous career as well
yeah.
has gone up into this point. Isaac Heaney all of a sudden being burst up to Brownlow. He absolutely played up to it, but now people considering him like a constant midfield rotation.
He
Realistically, like we
probably
mentioned
isn't.
before, he's a mid forward. He's a mid forward.
Yeah.
And it's very tough for those guys to win Brownlows. If you do it, you're fantastic.
Yeah.
Dustin Martin is one that
He's-
comes to mind,
yeah.
obviously. But Heaney, I can see it. He needs to put another season together like
Correct. I want to see where he does do 2 seasons of brilliant football in a row.
Yep.
Jesse Hogan. David King called him Jesse Carey. That's like
yeah,
the
now that
one
you
reason
mention it,
I have him there.
mention it, I probably should have put Hogan in there for that as well.
He
called
was-
him Jesse Carey.
He
yeah.
was Jesse Hogan was fantastic last year, right? Don't get me wrong. However,
But there's
to
a reason
compare-
he's landed at
to-
GWS.
To compare him with one of the greatest players in AFL history, what after 1 year, he kicked like 45 goals the year before. I understand that was David King's point, but I also don't think he wins the Coleman again this year. So that's sort of why, and a lot of people do.
yeah.
Aaron Norton, number 1. I don't like how the Bulldogs line up with their forward line when they're all together. I don't think Darcy, Norton, and Ugle-Hagan work. Norton and Ugle-Hagan are almost identical players, in my opinion. But Norton is not better than Ugle-Hagan, and he doesn't have better potential than Ugle-Hagan. He is not an accurate kick. He can fluctuate in games, and I just think that if they did not have one of the best midfielders in the competition, and he didn't get the ball delivered to him on a silver platter, he would not be anywhere near as good as he was, and he wasn't even that brilliant last year. He struggles to consistently impact games throughout a year, and that's why I have him number 1.
Okay. The only difference I'd probably do is I can't get over the Jesse Carey one, so I'd switch Norton and and I nearly said Carey. I'd switch Norton and Hogan.
Okay.
Purely off of what you just said.
Yeah, that's fair.
I like, again, Hogan's now got a Coleman to his name.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to deny how well he can play at his
Yeah.
best. But again, like I said before, there's a reason he is on GWS now. How many teams has he played for? He's played
Melbourne,
for Freo.
Freo.
So this is his third
Yeah.
team, right? And he's finally getting himself. He's finally found a system that works well
Yeah.
for him, which is great. But yeah, to compare him to Carey, I still can't get over. As
So
much as I
insane.
dislike Carey, I can't get over the fact that Hogan, nuts, ridiculous. Heaney also makes sense, and Norton is one that didn't come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why I didn't put him in overrated, because I think when I think overrated, I think of players who will come to mind really easily.
Okay.
So we'll go to mine. One will surprise you. Have you seen number 3?
I don't want
I'm
to say
not
3.
biased.
I love number 2. I absolutely love number 2. We hate Essendon over here.
Number
But
1. What do you think of
almost-
number 1?
I almost had Connor Rose in my All Australian.
So did
team.
I. But I think there's other Port players who could take it over him. And I'm also thinking, because he's captain, right?
Yeah.
He's the captain of Port Adelaide. He's got a lot on his shoulders, and he is also expected to now carry the load with Butters out.
Yeah.
Is he out or Butters is out?
Butters is out.
Butters is out. He's also expected to carry a lot. So we'll see how
Mm-hmm.
that looks. And that will depend, that will kind of, I think, shape whether this overrated pick is good or bad.
Yeah, if it's going to
If
pan
Rosie
out,
has a fantastic first month or two, then I will happily say I'm wrong. But I have a very big lack of trust when it comes to Port Adelaide, purely because of their finals form.
Yeah.
They very much choke when the pressure comes on. And I think Rosie is one of those players who buckles. And as much as good of a player he is, I often struggle to find myself picking him over Butters, or
Yeah,
even, and sometimes
definitely not
Horn
over
Francis.
Butters. Definitely not over Butters. I think Butters is clearly the better
And I think
player.
he has a lot of expectations on him
He does.
too. And I think maybe that's a bit too much for him,
I think the most interesting
especially
thing,
being given captain.
as a captain, how do you now handle being so young, because he's still only 23 or 24.
Yeah.
How do you now handle having a coach takeover in Hinkley's last year and now Josh Carr coming in? I think that's going to be really difficult for him to potentially almost take a dip out of his game, because it's going to be a lot to handle this year.
Yeah.
But take me through the Nick Martin pick, because I absolutely agree with it.
So Nick Martin pick. I know you agree with it because it's Essendon.
Yes.
Right. It's very easy to
Yeah.
agree with it, but he is one of those players that gets a lot of his disposals, and I'll always kind of have a second guess when I see players get 40 disposal games off the halfback flank.
Yeah.
That is when you can kind of tell, hey, they're the clear linking player,
Yep.
but how many of those kicks are earned? How many of them are just
Kick-ins.
basic kick-ins, really, really simple linking plays,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, you've still got to be effective and efficient. Nick Martin oftentimes does not come off efficient. I don't have the stats to back that up.
There are stats out there, though.
I believe so.
There was a game against St Kilda. I think it was the first
Feel
one
free
where he
to
had...
feel free to say I'm wrong, but
there was-
I think Nick Martin is probably the biggest case of it because he's
Yeah.
young, he's
Yeah.
early into his career. Essendon had a lot of hype last year as well, a lot of talk about them, and Nick Martin would get himself into the midfield and have himself some good games, but I found he would often find himself
falling
reserved back to
Yeah.
that halfback
Yeah.
flank role, and I feel like that's just the reason why I can't say he's one of those elite players. I think some people will call him elite.
Essendon fans.
Yeah, Essendon absolutely will call him elite.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it yet. I think a lot of his showcased skills so far have come from a position. It's why I wasn't I was super excited with Harry Sheasel, but I always had the idea in the back of my head, right? I know he's playing this well because of his halfback flank position.
Yeah.
But now he's moved into the midfield
And he's still showing...
and he's
his
still
knowledge.
showing that growth. He's still showing all of that. Colby McKirch is probably one that I'm always worried about.
Now take me through LDU then. 'Cause
LDU
you've managed to make your way through North Melbourne from Essendon, like you always do.
Yes.
So please now go through the LDU pick.
So LDU is probably one of my picks because he has had a lot of significant offers, a lot in there. He is don't get me wrong, a fantastic midfield, but for a midfield that is quite, I wouldn't say stacked, but it's heavy at the moment. There's a lot of midfield talent
Yeah.
in that North Melbourne side now, and I think LDU is kind of on the outside looking in at the moment. Simpkin probably will get the spot over him purely due to his captaincy.
Okay.
I don't know where else Simpkin would go.
I think Simpkins like that forward who plays as a midfielder.
Maybe.
I think so.
Maybe. I think when it comes to LDU, however, he has a lot of tendencies to overdo it as well. I've watched it personally where he's got fancy feet work. He looks fantastic, but will take on too many. It's the same with Cam Zurhaar.
Yeah.
And so Cam could even have a spot in overrated too. But again, I love them both as North fans, and I do hope he stays because I think he's got the talent to do so.
Yeah.
I just don't think he is worth how much he is getting elsewhere. And so I think that's why Alistair Clarkson has come out and said, we'd love to have him in, but if he leaves, it's not the end of the world because that's a lot of money you save.
So my question to you is, would you be happy if he, let's say St Kilda's offered him, would you be happy for him to go?
Unfortunately, yes. I love LDU, but I think in terms of the way that North want to set themselves up for the future, they need to be able to let it go when it's necessary. Because a lot of teams will hold on to that rock. I'll take it to basketball, right? I'm a Boston fan. Ignore the shirt. Marcus Smart is the biggest example I can give to someone. As a Boston fan, you would love Marcus Smart for as long as he was playing there. But literally the year he left, they won the championship. They got over the hurdle. And in his case, it was because he had the tendency to try and play hero ball. He was amazing defensively, but he wasn't the best player out in the court, but would sometimes act like the number one player. LDU gives me a bit of that.
Okay.
I think there are players that are better than him on the field, but LDU plays as if he needs to do it all himself.
Okay, fair enough.
And so, as much as I hate to say it, and I love LDU with a passion, I would love to see him stay. If he were to go, I would understand, and I would be okay with it.
Underrated. Yalai.
I hear a lot of Brady Hoff. I hear a lot.
Okay, this goes out to you, Brady Hoff. I apologize very, very much because in our first episode, I called you Bailey Hoff. I very much apologize.
So that's why you've got to
I very much apologize. But I think he is going to be Shannon Hearn 2.0. That's the way I see it. You're going to have McGovern still in the back line, but he's going to be Shannon Hearn 2.0, who plays on those forward midfielders, the big-bodied midfielders who've set forward.
I've seen Shannon Hearn play, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
I just think that this kid's going to be a great leader for them when he comes through and breaks out, obviously, which I think happens this year. I don't think he's talked about, and I think he works very well alongside Jeremy McGovern. And I think without any other key defenders there, he's going to have to take a step up, and I think he does. In second, I got Brandon Starcevic. I've talked about him, obviously, through my All-Australian pick.
You
That's
very
a
much like
big reason why I've got him here. And then third, Alelia. The only way Port Adelaide can survive is off of this guy's defensive prowess. He is so important to their success every year. And when he doesn't play, they're dog shit. Like, they concede so many dumb shit things when he's not around the play. And I think when you're talking about key defenders, he is probably the one that doesn't get talked about enough, but probably deserves a couple All-Australian spots for how good Port Adelaide have been over the last couple of years in the home and away season. And he just hasn't had that recognition. So that's why I've got him third.
Yeah, okay. I mean, with that explanation, I could kind of see it. I just think because I very much know how impactful Alelia is, but you make the point that once he's gone and he's not playing in that back line, they're very, very different. And what you're saying is a poorer side.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see it. I think Alelia does play a very important role. I wouldn't necessarily call him underrated because I think a lot of people understand how good he is, but maybe not to the degree that you believe he is.
I think they believe that he's a great player, but they don't put him in All-Australian conversations. I think he very much is.
Okay.
Consistently as well, on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I think you put that into better words than I did. I think, they know he's a good player, but not all Australian caliber. Yeah, that's probably the better way of putting it. Brandon Starcevic, considering I know who he is and who he plays for, and that's about it. I don't look very far into Starcevic, but maybe that's the reason why. And like you said, Brady Hoff has a big future ahead of him. I keep hearing his name pop up, not like consistently. Oh, he's a great player, but Like every now and then, people will come in and say, "Oh, Brady Hoff's going to be a fantastic player," and I'll be like, "I haven't seen enough of him or heard enough of him."
Really good.
But it sounds like I think that's just because West Coast are in their lull, right? They're still kind of working themselves out. But Brady Hoff, I think you could be right. You could be onto something because a lot of people see it too.
When I talked about it last week with my Josh Worrell pick, Josh Worrell's more of a halfback flanker. This guy's a pure lockdown intercept defender. They're very similar in terms of their physicality, in terms of their size and their athleticism, but they're different roles. I like that player. Yeah. I think that's the prototype you want as your third and fourth defender. Yep.
Beautiful. My underrated, I did cheat for 2 out of 3 of them. I basically just took what you said and and kind of used it because I feel like, it's so hard, these ones. It's so hard, especially with 30 minutes of time to try and sort it out. Yep. So, producer, could you switch to my one, please? Thanks, mate. For my most underrated, I've got Touk Miller.
Of course.
Yeah, no, you're seeing second and third. I'll go through Touk first.
Yeah,
I'll go through Touk first because
missed all of last year, basically.
Yeah, a lot of people will forget about him behind the Matt Rowell, the Noah Anderson, and some would even say Sam Flanders.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
But Touk, I mean, he has been previous, I think, AFLPA most valuable. I think he's been that before.
In 2023, I don't think so, but he finished really high in the Brownlow.
But he gets a lot of like really high recognition, and he plays so well.
Yeah.
But he never gets the main credit. And I think Touk at times in his career has been the best player on Gold Coast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Some will say Noah Anderson now. Some would have said Matt Rowell at times. I don't think Matt Rowell has ever been the best player on Gold Coast just yet. If he breaks out at some point, which is absolutely. He could at some point. Noah Anderson seems to be trying to take that role now, but he was, I think, was he vice captain? I know Jared Witts was the captain.
I got no idea.
I think he had a high leadership role, but he's never been that guy, which he should have been. I realistically think
so.
Noah Anderson is still very young. He's in the Connor Rosé camp now, as a young captain. I think Touk absolutely could have been that. I think he absolutely has the chance to be really good.
I think Gold Coast
leader.
Want to go through youth.
Yeah,
that's their way.
Like you're definitely right, but I think Touk just gets hidden amongst all the greats of the game. Maybe it's because of the team he plays for. I'm not sure.
That takes into it, but
I really do believe that Touk Miller is
every team would want one.
Yeah, he is one of the best players in the league. And no one talks about him in that way, or at least enough.
No, definitely not.
Like when you think about it, none of us had Touk here in our All-Australian teams.
Well, I just don't think he makes it over Noah Anderson. That's why.
There you go.
But that's because I think Noah Anderson's a better player. You had Noah Anderson in yours, so
yeah, no, exactly, and that's what I'm saying though. I think he gets routinely underrated.
Okay, fair enough.
Second, Josh Worrell.
Cheat.
That's a bit of a cheat. I think you raised a good point in your explanation of why you think he's going to be most improved. And had a look at him and how he played in my spare time through that and said, you're probably onto a good thing. And Callum Wilkie, I forgot that he was All-Australian. I'm like, yeah, he was, wasn't he? And so for that reason, I put him in third. Again, they are kind of cheats. I realistically should have come up with my own players, but I already had a tough time trying to think of overrated players. I needed a way out for my underrateds, so I went with two of ones you picked before. But I stand with my Touk Miller pick.
Yep. Well, I think we're now on to our second recurring thing.
Yes! Wait.
This is going to be a very interesting test because we've got no idea how this is going to work, if this is going to work. But we have had a fan send in his thanks, Basil message. Now, I really hope he has started it off with thanks, Basil. I really, really hope. Because if he hasn't, we're not reacting to it. We're just skipping straight past. So let's see if this plays. Aiden Core. Okay. Love the photo.
I can't hear
He's
it.
a Collingwood fan.
Here we go.
Here we go. Producer says.
Yeah, thanks, Basil. Really loving the way my team went in opening round. Just bloody fantastic. Having a good pre-season. Fucking destroying Richmond, and then we put out that. monstrosity of a performance. Like, what the fuck? Nakos getting injured. We let Finn Callahan go and have his own footy, basically. I thought we were better than this. Memberships being torn up.
I'm sure it is.
Fucking hell.
I'm sure it is.
Thank you very much, Aiden.
Thank you, Aiden.
Aiden C. Gotta love that. Gotta love a Collingwood fan absolutely hating his team performance. Isn't that right, Ethan?
I was going to say, is that not just Ethan, like with a different voice or something?
Maybe you put
background?
a voice filter on. Who knows? But yeah, Collingwood were absolutely horrible against GWS.
Yeah.
Whilst
Unlucky.
whilst they did kick it inaccurately, they did not look it. They looked very slow, and basically had one good performer who was Darcy Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh no, that's a shame. Anyways
is right.
Thank you, Aiden, though, and we very much appreciate that. I will give a quick call out if you want to join us on our segment. Please be sure to head over to Instagram. I think we mentioned it in our call out.
Yep.
Instagram is the best way you can get to us. Instagram, voice notes. We will take that and use, hopefully for you guys in the future with our segment. But again, as we said before, please start off all voice notes with "Thanks, Basil," and then jump into what you want to rant about,
Yep.
whether it's the game reaction, whether it's a hot take, whether it's anything like that, something that'll get us to laugh, but also give us some conversation would be fantastic.
Correct.
And again, thank you, Aiden. Appreciate that very much, mate. But let's finish up with our round one predictions. We'll try and make them quick because I don't think we've got much time left.
Nope.
Let's have a look here through the teams. We've got ourselves to start the usual Thursday night matchup tonight. We've got the Tigers versus the Blues.
Let's move on. 80 points. Let's move on. 80 points.
It's looking like one of the worst ones we're going to see in a good while. Next, though, we've got Hawks versus Bombers, and off of the win that
Let's move
Hawks
on.
had
80 points.
Okay, another big one. All right, let's go to Cats versus Dockers. I don't think this is 80 points. Don't say it. I'm going
no.
Dockers, though. I'm going Dockers. It's a GMHBA, so obviously Cats have that advantage. Maybe that will play more of an effect considering round one. And obviously Geelong has been playing on that ground a lot more than Fremantle
I
will
swear
have been.
every year they get round one at Geelong.
Yeah, well,
in
they're getting the
Geelong.
audit this year, so maybe it's the last one. We'll find out. No. But Cats versus Dockers, I think Dockers get it in a close game. Make it 8 points.
I could definitely see Geelong winning this because it's at home, but I think Fremantle will start off the year well, and I think maybe they slightly dip towards the end, similar to last year, but I agree. I think Fremantle win by, let's say, 15 points.
Yep, beautiful. Let's move on to Swans versus
Sydney,
Lions.
Brisbane.
What are you thinking?
I fully agree with Sydney being great this year, and so I can't not back them. Brisbane are going to be interesting, especially how they started the year compared to how they started last year. They started 0-3 last year. Could very well start off slow again this year, but I think this is going to be a fantastic game. I think this is probably going to be a close game as well, and I have Swans winning by 3 points.
I'm honestly just frustrated that injuries seem to be taking over these games. Like these really, really exciting games. This is obviously round one grand final rematch at the SCG. Oh, man. I'm going to go Lions.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Lions.
Very
I
easily
think
say it. Yep.
the Swans are missing and still dealing with way too many key
Yeah,
pieces.
they just got Taylor Adams and Callum Mills out in the last week.
Yep. Lions obviously missing out on McCarthy is awful, but you think that the Lions will be able to recover and find some replacements. I think the forward line is going to be their big test.
Yeah,
I think
we'll see how it goes early on.
It'll
for
be
sure.
very interesting to see how the midfield impacts the game on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Compared to the forward line, but it'll be a really, really interesting test. Sydney have a great back line, so this will be interesting.
Saturday night, prime time.
Let's go, baby! I'm so excited for this. Like I said, I'm
Bulldogs.
going to this one, man.
Bulldogs versus North Melbourne.
Dude, I've legitimately seen people tipping North, like legitimately tipping North, and it made me so much more excited. But at the same time, this feels like, do you remember when we started 2-0 and we beat Freo
and West Coast.
and West Coast?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is the year. We're finally going to turn it around, and then lost 20 straight. This feels like that. I'm going to be faithful. I'm tipping my ruse, baby. I'm tipping my ruse by 1 point. 1 point.
Ooh.
After this siren, she's going to win it. Let's go, man.
Bulldogs don't have Liam Jones. Marcus Bontempelli, Adam Treloar, potentially Ed Richards, no Ugle Hagen. North Melbourne are winning their first game of the year.
Please, please, please let it happen, man. Oh my God. I swear, if it's a Riley Sanders 50 disposal game,
Okay.
I am losing it. Caleb Daniel beats his old team. Everyone celebrates. I can't wait.
Whilst I am a gambling man, please always gamble responsibly. $3.50 odds is insane money. Please gamble.
That's against it. Okay, whatever.
This is $3.50 for you guys. 100% I'm taking that. Those are really good odds.
Fem's going to rock up next week in a paper bag. All right, next one. Saturday night at MCG, right across.
Collingwood, Port Adelaide.
Ooh, now this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Some really, really good matchups this
I
week.
heard an interesting stat on the weekend. After Collingwood recorded their third worst tackle count under Craig McRae, which I believe was 36. Every time they record under 40, they go out and record over 100 the next week.
Do we think this is going to happen again?
I think this is going to happen again.
I don't think it's going to be that extreme.
The-
100 tackles. Like, you also have to consider the conditions, maybe because of the MCG. If it's a
Yeah.
rainy night, that could happen. You have to think of the conditions. And I think, look, maybe.
I think
Maybe. It definitely could be scrappy,
I still
especially Dan Houston against his
Yeah.
old side.
Does he return?
Things could get chippy.
Does he return?
Actually, I'm not sure.
I don't know because it was. I think it maybe 4 or
How
6
disappointing
weeks.
would that be?
It'd be crazy if he does return. Maybe they scheduled it for exactly this.
Yeah. Do the Pies, though? Do they come back? Or does Port make Collingwood 0-2?
Collingwood win.
All
I think
right.
Collingwood win by about 20-ish. Yeah, we get it, Ethan. You don't need to clap.
That's awesome. Port by
don't need
70.
to
Let's
clap.
move on.
Yeah.
We're going the Crows versus the
Adelaide by
Saints.
80. Let's move on.
Adelaide Oval too, and you're
Yeah,
expecting Crows for a
Adelaide-
big year?
yeah, Adelaide
Okay,
by
I'm going
80.
Crows by 40.
Melbourne versus GWS.
GWS.
I have Melbourne upsetting them. I think
Okay.
I'm not a huge believer of GWS. I think that they put a lot into that game against Collingwood, and I think Melbourne start the year wanting to show something whilst they don't continue it. I think their first 5 or 6 weeks, they'll be really, really strong. It's in Melbourne too.
Yeah.
They'll have Petrarca, they'll have Oliver, they'll still have everyone fit at the moment.
I was going to say the injuries have been that, like, they've had some injuries,
Yeah.
but the only major one has been to Tunis Wakefield.
Yeah. And
the ACL taking him out.
You got Gorn against Lockie O'Keefe.
That is
that's a
actually
big
a
matchup.
really, really good
That's
point.
a big matchup.
That's a really good point. It could be a massive day
Yeah.
for Max Gawn.
Yeah.
And then finally, Eagles versus Sun at Optus Stadium.
Who do you have? You
Oh,
didn't say.
I said Giants.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eagles, Suns.
You've got to go Suns.
I have to.
Yeah, you have
I
to go
have to.
Suns. And to be fair, I agree. I think Suns will take it. But it is... Do their away woes continue this year?
No.
No, they're going to go
No.
23-0, Behm says.
I'm not confirming nor denying what Rhys just said.
Oh, my God.
Look out for potentially Ben King, if he's not on Jeremy McGovern, to kick over 5 goals. Same thing with Harry Mackay against Richmond.
Who is he playing? Yeah, Richmond. Yeah, that one. Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay.
No, Kerno's not playing. That's why I said.
Oh, that's right,
That's
yep.
why I said Harry Mackay.
Yep.
But yeah, we've got what? GWS starting 1-1, Collingwood starting 1-1, Sydney I have starting 1-1, you have starting 0-2, and then Hawthorn we both have starting 2-0. Hawthorn.
Most importantly, North Melbourne are 1-0, baby. The comeback year. It's the comeback season. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. We're gonna make the finals, and everyone's gonna shut up, and we're gonna win it all. I can't wait. All right.
Okay.
On that absolutely positive note, thank you so much for tuning in to Zero Access Footy episode number 3. It's been a pleasure as always, guys. And of course, you can see us, follow us on our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Yep.
We now are also on Spotify. Rate us 5 stars
Uh-huh.
on Spot. Is that how it goes?
Rate us 5 stars
on Spotify.
if you are an audio listener.
Yeah, we love the audio listeners just as much as we love the visual listeners. So
Yes.
thank you all so much again for tuning in. The first 2 episodes have been a blast to make and have been a fantastic outcome as
Yeah.
well. We've been talking about it amongst ourselves. and we're really, really pleased with how it's all turning out. So, again, appreciative to everything that you guys have done so far, and we hope to keep it going for as long as we possibly can. So, once again, thank you for tuning in. My name is Rhys.
My name is Behm.
And thank you for watching Zero Access Footy. How did we plan that?
It's so good. That was so good.